I saved a couple of them here. Where's mine?
Cinda, I didn't get a chair, so I'm back here.
No, come back. Oh, here, I saved two seats. Here, yeah.
Okay, can everyone hear me without the mic on? That's good, I don't have to talk as long as he does. So my name's Rosie, I'm the events coordinator here at Raiders, and just like a couple of the really boring things of life, if you have anything that makes any noise, a phone, a watch, a tablet, a beeper, pager, whatever, if it cannot make noise for the next hour, it'd be really, really great. Everybody has any cups or any napkins. There's a trash can up where you got your food, and there's also one behind the counter if you want to just give that to me. Easy peasy there. So here's the fun trick of the evening. After Gil's done talking, he's going to sign the books, and he'll be in the middle of the store. So the fun thing is the book is available at the counter between here and there. So we've got a nice flow going on. You can buy the book and keep going. But it gets complicated if you tell him he's doing such a good job and it's wonderful book and I'm going to buy them all and we can't get him there in time. So that's the flow I like to tell people about. So now there's all the boring stuff there. Gil and I were just talking about his book and about how much it's about connection and it's about the idea of people getting together. And he was saying this is a very simple topic, and I don't really think it is. I think it means a lot to bring in a crowd of people and to talk to each other and to network with each other. That builds a community and it builds yourself, and that's the way we can move forward in the world together, basically. And Gil will have a much more detailed structure to this idea. If you can give him a big round of applause, he'll tell us all about it.
Oh, thank you. Let's see how this sounds. Can you all hear me with this microphone? It's coming in clearly? Good. Well, I'm blown away. I didn't expect this many people to be here for this. It's delightful. For me, this was a life's work that I've been thinking about since, some of it since childhood, a lot of it since Berkeley when I went to graduate school there. And I've had a pursuit in my life for understanding a few things. In the beginning, of course, like all of us, or many of us, I had the question, who am I, right? Because that's a tough one, that was a tough one for me to answer. It took me to India, I studied Vedanta in Sanskrit to be able to have a new, fresh mind so that I wouldn't think about who I am from the mind of a Westerner, but actually understand it in a different language. And that was a healthy way of seeing the world through a different type of a mind. Very healthy. Also, questions like what's going on was another question that bothered me a lot. I had yeah, and yeah, and I remember times I had a very lucky birth in that my parents were really great and loving to me, and I was a happy, jumpy kid, and just, I guess, lovable, and everybody loved me. So that's been in my experience of life, that people are going to love me. That's a natural experience to me. But that got broken at one point in time when I was in 4th grade, and a kid, for some reason I wasn't aware of, I couldn't understand, or I'm not going to go into the full story. But he picked on me. He was a bully in the schoolyard, and he beat me up, broke my tooth, and I was totally shocked. Why would anybody want to harm me? And I never had anything coming at me in that kind of a negative way before. And for me, my whole life was just loving the intimate connections I had with my mom and other people. I never had a conversation with anybody. It got to a level of depth where we became friends. It was so easy and so natural. Why would people behave in any other way than wanting to do that? And then when I got kicked out of Brooklyn College. I just couldn't take what they call political science, and a lot of other things. I just didn't fit in that place, and I ended up going to Iowa Wesleyan College, where I was Jewish, And I didn't believe any of the stories from the Bible and the Jewish Bible. And I just loved Isaac Asimov before I went to Iowa. So all these nice critiques of the Bible from Isaac Asimov explaining why the flood, why the water would part, and all of the rest of those stories. So that came through. So when I went to Iowa, and there was a Methodist school, and they told me, they laughed at me because I didn't believe in Satan, okay? And so this got me in touch with that people have in their minds stories and beliefs that could cause pain for other people. And I just did not see the reason or the value in that kind of stuff. The next big change in my life was going to Berkeley. I was during the Vietnam War period, 1969, and studying physics, and that mostly I was a biologist. I loved biology, I loved chemistry, everything worked. It was complex systems, but they operated beautifully. Everything was just clockwork. It was just amazing to watch all of that. And when I got to physics, they had plenty of laws in physics, laws of motion, laws of gravity, and one of the laws was the second law of thermodynamics, which was the law of entropy, saying that in the closed system, energy dissipates, goes into a state of disorder. Okay, I can see that. Put a hot pan on a table and it's going to cool. It's not going to get hot by itself. Drop an egg, it's going to break, but it's not going to come back together again very easily, right? So entropy in that direction seemed very natural in that regard. But there was a piece that was missing, and I knew it from biology, and I knew it just from existing, and like all of us are existing, is that what created all of us? What was the physics? What was the story? What happened to be able to create us, to create this universe? And that was the piece that was missing. So I studied all kinds of stuff, and it just all over the place. And this book is like at least 50 years of inquiry, trying to understand how the universe got created, how we got created. And I'll tell you the answer to the question, what I'd like you to get a take home before I explain it in more detail, is that the universe actually is very mechanical. There's a method, there's a process that goes on of how things come together and how things continue to come together to create the complexity that is us and is everything else that's in the universe. The other stories I heard were like it was made in 6 days, which I didn't believe. And so I wanted to understand it in more detail. And so I've been thinking about it, with not necessarily any intent to write anything, just because I just was curious and trying to understand as much about the story as I possibly could, and covering all kinds of different areas from anthropology, language, linguistics, cognitive science, brain science. I went through all of those areas to understand how these complex systems operate. And something clicked about a year ago. There was a concept that came out, and the concept made a hell of a lot of sense to me. And it was a piece of a puzzle that fit together with other pieces of the puzzle. And what that piece was that this concept of functional information, that things persist when they join together, that each part can take the advantage of the other part by and become more functional. I'll get into that in more detail. So, and that's just a mechanical process. Understanding that it's simple and it's ubiquitous. It's all over the place. You'll see it. We'll do an experiment in the class. Boy, that goes back years. Okay. So is that to see that? But the biggest piece. I always say the biggest piece before I say the next sentence. But the biggest piece for me is being triggered by what's been happening in the world and the disorder and how things aren't coming together, how things are coming apart. And I said, no, especially now when it's shifted to a higher level of chaos, actually, and more fear in everybody's hearts. That it's more important to look at something and come up with another way of looking at what's happening. And just to view everything through a different kind of a lens, a natural lens. And the way I saw the picture was that when I look at my body, or anybody's body, we're made of about 35 trillion cells. And those cells seem to get along pretty well most of the time, right? Right? It's organized in organs and everything seems to work. And when I look at the country, we have only 340 million people. And we don't seem to know how to get along at all. So there's a disconnect there. And I thought that if I can show the mechanism that's going on in nature and how nature creates the beauty of our bodies, the beauty of the ecological system now. In our ecological system, we just saw the fire that happened here and how resilient the nature is in terms of other things coming in because of the diversity of types of species that there are. So there's a lot that I had to put into this book. Let's go to the mechanism, because the mechanism is simple, and I'll do it since I can do it at any level. We can talk about it from how quarks create protons and neutrons. We can talk about atoms. We can talk about cells. We can talk at any single level, how cognitive system operates. All of these areas are covered in the book as I go through it and as a story, and hopefully written in a way that is pretty easy and timed in a way that's easy to read. So, but any relationship is an example of, and how relationships are form the heart of how the world starts putting pieces together instead of how pieces fall apart. So, what happens, like, let's take us, for example. Now, it's my wife, we have a relationship. And I have friends, we have other relationships, and here's the friends that we have from other kinds of relationships, and from other kinds of relationships. And then each one, and then from friends from pickleball relationships. Right? So all different things. And why are you all here? It's because each one of you somehow resonates with something I'm talking about or something about me that you know that you're connecting with, right? And there's a bond. And that is actually at the heart of the physics of this thing. And I'll go through a simple little story with anybody's relationship. But you can think of it as in your own relationships with others, right? Before you knew your partner, your best friend, or whoever you have an intimate relationship with, they didn't exist in your mind. They weren't around. They did not, there was no reality for them in the world, all right? And then you bumped into a lot of other people, and you shared information, you knocked into here and there, but they didn't have the same interest or whatever. There was nothing that they said or nothing that they did that resonated with you, because somehow, wow, I really connect with that person. You felt this intimacy of connection. And then what you did is you put out energy towards that person. And when you put out that energy, and not only you put out energy, you talk to that person, right? And they talk to you. So you shared information, and you shared energy. And this exchange of energy and information, and the more you did it, the stronger the bonds became in these relationships. The more you got to know each other. This is the heart of why things come together and stay together. And they don't stay together as being fixed together. It's not fixed, right? Once you have a relationship, you're done? No. The relationships have to be dynamic or they don't last, right? If you don't continue to put energy into the relationship, it's not going to work. If you don't put information, if you don't talk to each other, it's not going to work either. So to be able to have a dynamic relationship, you have to have that happening. When something happens in the world, strong situation occurs in the family, or who knows what it is. It can shake you up, but for some reason, or even between the two of you, something can happen. And when that happens, it challenges the relationship. But because the relationship has this binding energy built over time and built over all the things you have connections with, right? That maintains the relationship's existence, whether the challenges come from internally or whether the challenges come externally into the situation. So, once you have that relationship, what can you do? Well, you can do a lot, because now you just created a new emergent property, a new emergent entity, a couple, right? Now you're a couple. And a couple now can do things that maybe you couldn't have done by yourself. You can join a couples club and do something else. Right? You can go play pickleball together as a couple. You can, and the couples can all do things, and they can say, let's go on a Hawaii vacation together. Okay? I'm saying that because we did all that stuff in these couples groups that were in. Okay? So it's like, this is how it builds. Not only that, but I met Lucinda, and after that I met her son, I met her brothers and her sisters, and her whole family. So my universe expanded by these resonant connections that I've had with all of these people. Okay? Some stronger than others, depends on what the resonance was. But those bonds are there, and those family relationships stay. So it's really important. So this, in the physics story, just to play, well, there's so many ways I can play it. But in the physics story, entities come together because you can say it's attraction, because they do something called resonant coupling, and that's the art of why these resonances that we feel with one another lead to coupling. Okay, the easiest physics example I can give is: has anyone pushed their grandchild or their child on a swing on the plaza? Right? Right? And the kid's kicking it and it's not doing very much, right? But you take it and you give it a push. And you give it a push. And you give it a push. And when you do that push, you do it at a certain rhythm, don't you? A certain frequency.
Yeah.
Right? The one that matches the natural frequency that gravity puts on a pendulum, right? Okay, when you do that, it's easy. Right?
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
What if you push it the wrong time? Right? It doesn't work. You're not coupled, right? And when you're coupled, the kid's happy. Right? When you're uncoupled and you jar him, he's not going to be very happy. All right? So that's one example of resonant coupling. Another is my cousins went canoeing on the Russian River. And I can see them, and they never were able to get along very well, but they had one of the longest marriages I know. For some reason, they love to fight, and they're happy with it. But that's not something with them resonates. Okay, it's not something that makes any sense to me, but to them it really works. Okay, so it's for their relationship. Well, they went canoeing on the river, and they got stuck between the two posts that are there because they couldn't coordinate. Okay, but you know, when you're in a canoe and you want to get the canoe to operate in a smooth way, what do? You resonate. The person in the front strokes at the same time, or in the same cycle in the rhythm. And then what happens? Does the boat flop around, or does it get stable? It gets stable. Same thing, same bonding energy. Once you start doing that, you develop stability of a relationship. Okay? And again, if the current of the wind changes, what happens? Not much. You're still able to manage it because the coupling of the relationship is able to withstand perturbations coming outside from other directions. So that's how Infropy works. I called it Infropy, well, because it's the complement of entropy. You need energy to do things, and whenever you do anything with energy, you're going to use the energy, and the energy gets dissipated. That's a natural thing. But but the other thing that comes with it is that when things resonate, they actually couple together. And when they couple together, that they become stable entities, and these stable entities then can couple with other entities if they, when those other entities have a functional relationship that helps, and if it's a functional relationship that helps, that's stable, it persists in the environment and it stays around. So that's how things maintain itself. It's through these interactions. Those with more successful interactions do a better job. Other things end up like rocks. They evolved to a certain point with this method for the molecules coming together, but they didn't get further than that. So they're stopping points. So, where should I take it next? Oh, yeah, the most important part. What do we do with it? Okay. What do we do with it? Okay, we know this is the part at our heart. This is what makes relationships. And we see that when you look at the body, let's take that as an example. All the cells seem to get fed by the same process. None of them are starving, right? They all get food, they all get oxygen that they need. There's no cell in the body, and there's no organ in the body that's king. Okay? Okay? If the brain doesn't, your brain doesn't control your intestines, and your digestive tract doesn't control your heart. They're all organs that work as a harmonious system that's integrated with itself. Okay? There's no king cell, is there? Right?
Nope.
There could be a king cell, but what do we call the king cell? Especially if it has influence and replicates.
Cancer.
We call it cancer. That's exactly right. Okay? So when something is using up all the energy, not connecting and communicating, the first thing a cancer cell does is it disconnects from its neighbors. And then it becomes a primitive cell. That what does it do? Does it stay connected and related to its neighbors?
No.
It starts replicating like it did when it was in its earliest stages. And it keeps on growing and growing without any control. Right? So bodies learned how to deal with things like that. There are a lot of precancerous cells that can get started, but we have a network system that sends the immune system into it to deal with saying, catch this thing before it gets too bad. Right? So there's much more resilient and adaptive systems that we have. Most. Okay. So the way we use this information for the future, in the present, with what's going on today, is the first thing we've got to know is in order to have a connection, a resonance with anybody, there's a step one. And do you know what the step one is?
Proximity.
It's listening. Right? The first step to create resonance is not talking. It's not fighting for your own points. It's not being right. It's actually listening. And really getting a deep understanding of what's going on for that other person. What's their story? And what you find out very often when you have a conversation, it doesn't matter who it is and what they believe. When you get down to the stage of what it's like from human to human being, it doesn't matter what they believe. Because we're all exactly the same. We all want this feeling of connection, resonance, love, the joy of being together in a way that is safe, non-threatening. Right? So we have to listen is the main step to everything. And all of us are involved in environments and situations where we have plenty of people to talk to. People that agree with us, people that don't agree with us, people that look like us, people that don't look like us. Everybody needs to be listened to. There's a situation, I just went to, just a simple thing. And I just went to a store somewhere, and I saw people that were not not as healthy and as happy as other people are. Okay? And that kind of neglect, that kind of neglect of people that aren't sharing what they do have with others is horrific. It's like the body. Imagine if your body had peripheral neuropathy. What happens with peripheral neuropathy? You can't feel your feet or something. You can't feel your fingers, right? Well, we've had a lot of peripheral neuropathy in this society with so many people that have not been seen and have not been heard, right? And they've been around. Gotta go, put out the energy, get the information, you gotta listen, and you gotta communicate. Because we're all the same, we're all in the same boat, we're actually all the same because we're all different. Okay?
Yes.
We're all different. Okay? That's the gift that makes it interesting for everybody. Look out in the forest. You see all kinds of different kinds of trees and plants and everything. That's the richness that creates the resilience in the world. Without the differences, imagine if you try to build a world on Lego, a single kind of Lego block. Okay? You wouldn't get very far. Right? It's because we have differences that adds the richness and the possibility. Even Lego learned that, right? And you can see when you go to a toy store if you have grandkids like I do. Okay, they have tons of little parts now because it creates many more options. Well, I've talked for my 25 minutes. And now if you guys want to chat and ask questions and whatever, I'm open for anything. Joe.
Gil, when I was reading, I haven't finished your book, but when I was reading it,
Yeah.
You said that Infropy is not the same as evolution.
Yeah.
And I'd like it if you could clarify that a little bit, because in my mind, those were the same thing. But I know from talking with you that that's not the case, but I would like to hear you kind of explain that a little bit more.
There's so many angles I can play that from, okay? The most fun one would be linguistics, okay? Because words can mean different things. We're very limited in the words that we use. There's so many more things in the world than there are words for them. So what do? We create categories, right? So one of those categories is evolution. When you look at it from the scientific perspective of what evolution, it's Darwinian evolution. Natural selection, after mutation is natural selection, and that which persists in the environment is the one that's going to be passing on its genes. So that's where evolution is coined. But things evolve, don't they? All kinds of things evolve, right? And we personally evolve as individuals. Is that evolution? No, but it's a form of evolution, right? So that's a way that we can use that word. Words are really tricky. Part of the book is on the symbolic mind, and it's such an important section of the book because all of us live in our minds. Okay? Some more than others. Some joyfully in our minds, and some not so joyfully in the minds. Right? It all depends on how it got programmed, and how much, as an individual, you've been able to say, step back and take a look at what's in my mind, and done some inquiry, and say, does this aspect that's in my mind serve me in my life? Okay, if it does, hang on to it. It's great. But if you see it ruins relationships, or it does things that don't support you or your health or whatever, then think about changing those beliefs. I don't know if that answers your question, but my form of that. Let me go to what with Infropy now.
Yeah.
So Infropy is a mechanical mechanism that occurs way before biology existed. The way quarks, the first subatomic particles that got created, the way they relate to each other, they share information and energy by the use of gluons.
Okay, don't go
Okay.
too much into this, we're gonna fall asleep.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the appendix, if anybody wants to go deep, the appendix goes into it, and it has a mathematical model, which you don't want to look at if you don't, unless you really
Okay.
want to look into it.
So open for questions.
Oh, so more questions, if there are any. Yes.
Do you ever, I haven't read your book yet, I kind of skimmed through it a little bit. Do you ever touch on, I guess, like objective and subjective truth? Because a lot of what I'm seeing in the book so far and from what I'm hearing you're saying, you're talking a lot about dynamics and just how things interact and how things have to be certain ways to be other ways and combine and whatnot. Do you ever dive into the psychology, I guess, of like what it takes to be, I feel like, how to be a functional society and not run into problems like just like imaginative thinking and whatnot? I'm wondering if I'm even barking up the right tree here.
Well, it's certainly covered in the book, for sure.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Because that's the two worlds we live in. There's one, the real physical world that we live in, right? It's tough. If I hit it hard, I'm gonna hurt my hand, right? But if I was an elephant, I could fly, right?
Why?
Yeah, like Dumbo. So in the world, in our mind,
Real?
in the symbolic mind, in the subjective storytelling
Okay.
mind, we have the imagination, we can do all kinds of stuff. We can create imaginatively beautiful things, we can create bridges, we can create all kinds of wonderful things. But at the same time, we can create all kinds of horrors, right? And that's really gone into quite deeply in the book. So yeah, and then the other part is that's one form of objective. The other is subjective. We all have a subjective experience, right? You're seeing me in color and blue and black and different types of things. That's another form of subjective experience, where it's your personal experience. If you're colorblind, you're going to see me different than somebody else, right? So subjective experience physiologically is another way of looking at it. So many things.
Okay, let's get more questions.
More questions?
I just have a question.
Yeah, okay.
How do you see this concept of Infropy impacting the community or the world or the nation?
That's a great question. How does
How,
Infropy
and, yeah,
impact
is
the
it a
world?
possibility to, incorporate this into some of the
Well,
strategies?
My thinking there is that the basic concept of how relationships form and how relationships build and how they become coherent systems is pretty straightforward in terms of when you think of the body and things like that. When you think of the social world and our societies and the rest, it's a completely different story right in there. But I think it can learn from it. We tried in different ways. That's why we have the Constitution, which created checks and balances. What checks and balances are, what is it? It's a way of listening to other voices, right? And trying to use that feedback to determine how do we best use that for the health of the organism. So when we hold these truths to be self-evident, these basic truths, that all men and women are created equal, that essence, right? That is a truth, okay? And that's something that we have to build on those kinds of concepts. And I think at some point in time, we're gonna have to write a new constitution if you want to get to that level. Okay, but we will, because the one we have, we can see, it doesn't work, it doesn't support the people very well. There's too much peripheral neuropathy, right? Right? There's too much of that. There's too much inequity in terms of the distribution of blood and oxygen around the body, right? These things aren't working, right? So how does Infropy work? Well, look at the models of this field called biomimicry that's used in engineering to take a look at how does a bird fly, or how does an animal live so that it can move through space in a better way, and it uses modeling of biological things to develop. I think the same way, if we look at the body and how it organizes, like I was saying earlier, instead of having a dictator cell or a dictator organ that is in charge, right? Then you say, no, it has to be a pluralistic system, right? It has to have distributed institutions that know how to interact with each other, that rather than their lives being, the institutional life being to maintain itself and make sure it continues to get its funding, that it continues, right? That what it does is it continues to do its responsibilities,
Yes.
right? And that's what it's there for.
That's right.
And that's why we have so little faith right now in the institutions that are going on, because they haven't been serving people, right? They shouldn't. And this is a shakeup now. Hopefully we're gonna shake out of it at some point in time. Well, we'll see. You can't predict the future, but the tools are there. And every time that there's been a tragedy or a chaotic period, it became a learning experience. Life is resilient, right? Life comes up with solutions that we never thought of before. We never thought of the iPhone. How many things did you never think of until they come into existence because of an imaginative mind somewhere, right? So we don't know what's the new, what's going to come in. But the body and the environment are the systems that show us how things should be operating and how we can fit into it where we're supposed to, rather than having our subjective minds seeing ourselves as separate from the world and separate from others, which is ridiculous, because it doesn't do any good. It just destroys, it doesn't build, right? That's really it. Greg, yeah.
I'm wondering, some of the things you're talking about are kind of difficult for me to totally comprehend. But if I was to work on it and come to an understanding and more clarity there, could I somehow apply that to my pickleball games? So I can win more?
Yeah, I would say yes. And the part where I say yes is if you're not continuing to learn, your pickleball game will never get better.
Okay.
What?
Are you finished? I mean, did you
What?
want to say anything else?
Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, just what that made me think about was like on a real simple level with a little kid, which is a familiar arena. A little kid, very young kid, is gonna think all round things are gonna roll, and they're
Yeah.
gonna roll in a particular way. Along comes a round thing, but it's got like maybe some flat surface, and it doesn't roll in the predictable way that this kid thinks.
Yes.
So there's this little, there's nothing wrong with it, but in the process of understanding about round things,
Yeah.
it just occurred to me that that somehow ties in with what you're talking about in terms of like a forward-moving theory, but there's something that enters that doesn't quite make sense, doesn't throw it off completely.
Yeah.
Can you, does that?
That's Bayesian thinking. It's what it is it says that we have to always update. You see new information, we always have to update our model based upon the information that we get. Right? If we stay stuck in the old model, right, you're not going to advance, you're not going to evolve. But things are always different. And then you have to, you don't say, no, I want to be right. I'm going to force my way. It's round. Okay? No, you have to learn with it and say, no, this is going to perform differently, and therefore, how do I deal with it? And that's how the brain works. That's how the brain updates. When it sees new things, it's built into the biology. Yeah.
I briefly also read a little bit about what you were talking about in free will, like that. So you said you weren't looking at it in terms of like it wasn't binary for you. I guess I'm trying to figure out like because I didn't read the whole thing. I was wondering if you could summarize it before I.
Yeah, free will is a great subject because it's current and there's a lot of disagreement on what it means, right?
So
whether it's we're predestined or whether we're not. I don't buy into that argument at all.
Okay, so like,
Okay, I think certain things are mechanical. Okay, and there's no free will. Like a pool ball is going to do what it does, right? It's going to follow the laws of physics. An animal is going to behave in a way that of its habits, of its training, of its memory, and it's going to do those things over and over again. It can learn, but it's going to always detract from what it learned. What it won't do is it won't say, should I do that this time, or maybe I should do something else. It doesn't have the capacity to deliberate. And when we deliberate, that occurs in mental space. Okay? And when you're doing that, it is a negotiation with yourself, with the I, as you read it, and the way I use it. It's a negotiation with yourself. And then there's no question about it. You have free will. You have a choice. Okay? Because you could have chosen something else.
Yeah.
Whereas a dog or a cat or other animals don't. Now, do we use it all the time? No. I think we use free will very rarely. We don't want to have to spend a lot of energy and brain work having to deliberate and make every choice every time. We want to develop habits that work for us. Good habits are good, bad habits are bad, right? So we want to create habits that run automatically. And there's no free will in any of those actions. But once you say, should I do that? Is this the right thing to do? Is this going to be infropic or is this going to be entropic? Okay, do good or do harm? Then you're using free will in my modeling. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yeah.
Right? It puts agency. Otherwise, if it's all predetermined, you have no agency. You're just a billiard ball bouncing around the table, just a more sophisticated one. Are you totally free? No, you're not totally free because you only can work with the information that you have, right? So you do your best like everybody else, right? Yeah,
You know,
Barbara.
so much has been written and there's been so much research in recent years about the negativity bias, which, you know, this sort of innate, inborn tendency to see things in a negative way, right?
Yeah.
So it's like bucking that is a huge thing to do. And yes, it involves a lot of choice, but sometimes the choice isn't even apparent.
It isn't there. When you're coming from a bias, the bias is making your choice,
Right.
right? There's no deliberation, there's no free will in that. Like anytime you come from a belief, okay? The belief is making the choice. Why do you have those beliefs? Because you picked them up when you were a child and all the rest of that, and if you did that, did what they told you, you were okay. You were safe, okay? You were part of the group. If you didn't.
Right, and you can choose to
And you can choose.
unwind those
There's
beliefs,
free
but-
will.
That's right, but
Yeah.
in terms of society and the larger sort of body
Yeah.
that we inhabit, where there's a lot of illness right now, in particular, that, you know, getting that message through is,
Yeah, there's no
It's really
deliberation
tough,
on
yeah.
either side. What I'm saying, there's no deliberation on the left or the right, there's no deliberation, okay? There's no deliberation. The way you can deliberate honestly is to actually communicate with the people that are different than you, okay? And then you have something to look at freshly, and then you are making a choice because you deliberated out honestly, seeing what those people are saying, thinking, and then you evaluate at this point in time, what's the right action, okay? And then you're acting with free will. Right? Otherwise, you do the habitual. And you want to be with habits most of the time because it's more efficient. We don't have time to think about everything. Right? Burn more calories. Well, how are we doing? Are we supposed to, am I supposed to call it?
One more question, so you have time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rosie.
Thanks, Rosie. One more question. Yes.
So I'm just reading this book right now, The Courage to be Disliked. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No, courage to be disliked.
Yes,
Oh,
and it's
good.
written by, in the Socratic dialogue
That's good.
formed between an older philosopher, psychologist, and a younger youth who's questioning him.
Yeah.
And one of the main concepts is etiology versus teleology, and the idea that in etiology we think that our present is determined by our past, Whereas in teleology, it's like whatever things have happened to us are, in a sense, callings for our unique contribution to the world or our particular task.
I see.
And I feel like I haven't read your book, but in some of the things you're saying, it feels like there's some overlap and something there that's similar, because one of the other things they talk about is about separation of tasks and how in order to be really true to ourselves, we have to take on our own tasks and not other people's. So anyway, just wondering if any of that kind of bounces off some of what you're saying.
I don't know where to put it, other than the concept of what is your purpose? And, right?
Right.
Is that kind of where it's at?
Well, yeah, and I think it's also about kind of connected to what you were saying in the beginning about how people connect, and then the connections form like persistent bonds,
Yeah.
and that in order to really have persistent bonds, we have to follow our own. We can't just be acting out of fear
Oh,
or
beautiful.
a hierarchical sense that we have to do what other people expect.
Yeah, well, one is the integrity to the self, right?
Yes.
Which is physical and real, right? And the other one is using a belief in your head that you have to follow what somebody else says in order for you to feel safe or to feel included
Right.
or whatever. And therefore you give up your own value, self-value.
Right,
Devalue
Yeah.
yourself, right?
right,
And none of us should devalue ourselves. We're all amazing human beings.
right.
This planet.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I feel like there's some themes there that are, I try to make translations.
Take a look at the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all very much for being here.